Who in the world do we thank, or blame, for this genius box stealing our time? Well, imagine a world without screens. A world where your only entertainment was a good book or a radio. Sounds bleak, right? Well, thank one man for changing all that: a teenage genius, a race against time. Philo Taylor Farnsworth, as a young man, tinkering with electronics. The man who single-handedly dragged us out of the Stone Age of entertainment and into the glorious age of endless scrolling. Or, as we like to call it, the present. There's a much more to Farnsworth's life than just inventing the TV. His story has everything: genius, struggle, a supportive family, courtroom drama. The Real Farnsworth Files, and electronic television. The idea of television electronic transmission of moving pictures goes back to the earliest form of electronic communication. The telegraph, to begin connecting the world in 1837 as telegraph. In 1860, Italian priest Giovanni Caselli invented the pantelegraph. A device designed to transmit messages over standard telegraph lines. Both the sending and receiving devices were synchronized using a pendulum. Messages were written with insulating ink on a metal plate, and the receiving apparatus used chemically treated paper that darkened when exposed to an electric current. The sender would transmit the image as an electric current, and the receiver would decode it, making the pantelegraph an early precursor to facsimile machines capable of reproducing images. The image would be written a line at a time as the pendulum swung, and the lines together would show the image. This process was an early version of what is called rasterization. Project moving images onto a screen. Christian Huygens invents the magic lantern. This strange little device with lenses, glass, throwing images using a lantern onto a wall, would produce primitive moving images. That playing with light is very important, because once you get to light and glass, then you're getting to a point where you're beginning to approach a lens. And by the mid-1800s, a new chemical process managed to capture these images and freeze them onto paper. The photograph was born. A photographic image is created by converting light into a chemical reaction. Light enters through a pinhole in the camera lens, and, the more light, the greater the chemical reaction. By the late 1800s, a new technology was developed allowing hundreds to view moving images, the motion picture camera. Translucent photographic film runs behind a lens at speed, each frame sharply exposed by the rapid opening and closing of a shutter. Also, James Clerk Maxwell's key contribution to electromagnetism in the 1860s was his theory that unified electricity and magnetism, predicting the existence of electromagnetic waves which travel at the speed of light, laying the foundation for transmitting images over distances. Moving picture one problem was that the device could only write one line at a time. Translating moving images required an ability to draw all the lines at once. Or at least nearly at once. The first solution to that problem came from German engineer Paul Nipkow. Paul Nipkow, who invented the scanning disc. In 1884, Nipkow applied to the Imperial Patent Office in Berlin for a patent covering an electric telescope for the electric reproduction of illuminating objects. In 1885, uses a revolving disc perforated with holes in a spiral. Each hole represents a spot that could encode data as the dispensed. Each hole encodes it was based on a simple rotating disc perforated with an inward spiraling sequence of holes. It would be placed so that it blocked reflected light from the subject. In the 1870s, the Audion vacuum tube invented by American Lee De Forest. He invented the first practical electronic amplifier, the three-element, Audion, triode vacuum tube in 1906. This helped start the electronic age, and enabled the development of the electronic oscillator. These made radio broadcasting and long-distance telephone lines. And patented in 1907, which amplified signals. In 1897, German physicist Carl Ferdinand Braun built the first cathode ray tube. The CRT is a vacuum tube where electrons are generated and projected onto a phosphorescent screen. The phosphor on the screen glows when struck by the electrons. The stream of electrons is focused into a tight beam and magnets are used to manipulate the beam. By the 1920s, wireless radios had shown that it was possible to transmit at least sound. The receiver on the other end converts the modified radio waves back into the original electrical signal. In 1925, John Lois Beard, a Scottish inventor, demonstrated the first moving images television system. John Lois Beard successfully demonstrated the transmission of moving images using a mechanical system. His work culminated in the first public demonstration of a television in 1926 in London, where he showcased live moving images to a captivated audience. Mechanical television had too many problems to take over the world. The screen is only about an inch wide, and it doesn't have detail, very blurry images. This is mechanical. Moving parts are noisy. There's got to be a better way. A system for turning light into electricity change our world. And the inspiration came from a genius person.
It is now 12 years since this apparatus showed the sun.
Let's rewind to 1906. Picture a small farm in Beaver, Utah, where a young boy named Philo Taylor Farnsworth is born. The second of 5 children, Farnsworth had a knack for tinkering even as a kid. At age 11, he stumbled across a stack of science magazines in an attic, and one article about electricity changed his life forever. In 1921, now 14 years old, he moves with his family to a farm in Idaho. Here, Farnsworth's genius truly blossomed. One day, while plowing fields, an idea struck. Cut to animation of young Farnsworth staring at straight lines in a field. What if we could beam pictures just like plowing lines, one row at a time? By the age of 14, he'd already sketched out the basic principles of electronic television. Can you imagine being 14 and inventing something that would change the world forever? Most of us were still figuring out how to tie our shoes. How many of us at 14, just trying to microwave ramen without burning down the kitchen? Farnsworth wasn't just dreaming, he was doing. With the support of his high school science teacher, Justin Tolman, Farnsworth dove deep into the mechanics of his idea. Farnsworth, a young American inventor, was making strides in electronic television. At the age of 21, Philo transmitted the first electronic television image. It was a simple straight line, but it was a giant leap for mankind. And for Farnsworth, it was just the beginning. He is trying to turn vision into reality. A simple straight line. Not exactly smart TV worthy, he called his invention the image dissector. Farnsworth, a young American inventor, was making strides in electronic television. In 1927, he successfully transmitted the first electronic television image, a simple line, thus marking a significant milestone in television. He's trying to develop a new kind of vacuum tube. He calls it his image detector. The image dissector is the world's first electronic television. Farnsworth developed the first fully electronic television system, which used a device to capture moving images and convert them into electronic signals. After months of effort, Farnsworth can't get it to work. He has got to wait for it to heat up. The image dissector tube was structurally unsound, and there was a danger that it was going to implode at any moment. The tube had to be created in the right shape. It had to be big enough. He had fires in his laboratory. He was just working out all these problems after months of failures and a crash. Farnsworth finally lands on a much larger design that doesn't blow up, but now Farnsworth has to prove his new tube can capture clear moving images. He turns on the receiver tube and transmits a simple vertical line painted on a glass slide. It's not very clear. He is so excited about that line. After all the blood, sweat, and tears, it finally works, and he literally can see the light. The first time anybody has ever sent a moving picture over the airwaves electronic television. Farnsworth applied for a patent, and in 1928 his breakthrough made front-page news.
In 1923, While working for the Westinghouse Electric Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Zworykin filed a patent application for an all-electronic television system, although he was as yet unable to build and demonstrate it. In 1929 he convinced David Sarnoff, vice president and general manager of Westinghouse's parent company, the Radio Corporation of America, RCA, to support his research by predicting that in 2 years, with $100,000 of funding, he could produce a workable electronic television system. Meanwhile, the first demonstration of a primitive electronic system had been made by Philo Farnsworth. With his first $100,000 of RCA research money, Zworykin developed a workable cathode ray receiver that he called the kinescope. At the same time, Farnsworth was perfecting his image dissector camera tube. Meanwhile, Farnsworth faced another challenge. RCA sued Farnsworth of his patent priority, but Farnsworth eventually won the dispute. In 1930, Zworykin visited Farnsworth's laboratory and was given a demonstration of the image dissector. At that point, a healthy cooperation might have arisen between the two pioneers, but competition, spurred by the vision of corporate profits, kept them apart. Sarnoff offered Farnsworth $100,000 for his patents but was summarily turned down. This kicked off a legal battle that lasted years. Farnsworth, a farm boy turned inventor, facing off against one of the most powerful corporations in America. It was like David versus Goliath, but instead of a slingshot, Farnsworth had diagrams and an underfunded legal team. Struggles with RCA. Ultimately, Farnsworth won the patent rights, but the victory came at a cost. Legal fees drained his finances, and RCA's influence kept him out of the limelight. Farnsworth accepted an offer to join RCA's rival Philco, but he soon left to set up his own firm. Through all this, Farnsworth had one constant: his wife, Elma Pem Gardner Farnsworth. Pem wasn't just his life partner, she was his partner in the lab. Together, they worked late nights assembling prototypes, troubleshooting issues, and raising their 4 children. But the stress took a toll. Farnsworth struggled with depression later in life, disillusioned by how his invention had been commercialized. He once lamented, "There's nothing on it worthwhile." He has secured a $25,000 investment for his idea. No longer an Idaho farm boy, Farnsworth has traveled west along with his new wife Pam to chase his dream, the technology. His contributions laid the groundwork for everything from satellite communications to modern streaming platforms. And while RCA's Sarnoff got more fame, true innovators like Farnsworth remain the unsung heroes of history. By 1932, the conflict between RCA and Farnsworth had moved to the courts, both sides claiming the invention of electronic television. Years later, the suit was finally ruled in favor of Farnsworth, and in 1939 RCA signed a patent licensing agreement with Farnsworth Television and Radio Incorporated. This was the first time RCA ever agreed to pay royalties to another company. Farnsworth's invention reshaped the world. Television brought us the moon landing, global news, and yes, countless hours of entertainment. Modern TV shows, news broadcasts, and streaming platforms.
They're back and came to my office. You were a good dreamer. We talked about broadcasting.
1936, the BBC British Broadcasting Corporation launched regular high-def television service broadcasting from Alexandra Palace in London. The service used a mechanical system initially but soon switched to the all-electronic Morone ME system, which offered better picture quality. This marked the beginning of scheduled television programming and set the stage for future developments in broadcast television in the United States. British Broadcasting Corporation estimated that 19,000 television sets had been manufactured from 1936 to September 1939. 3 years of regular television operation, and then the BBC shut down because of World War II. The last thing broadcast was a Mickey Mouse cartoon, Mickey's Gala premiere, followed by test patterns. After 6 years of fighting, the United Kingdom and Europe were left in tatters from the savagery of war. The BBC picked up television service again in 1946 and picked up right where they left off, playing the same Mickey Mouse cartoon. When Olympics coming up, the Nazis see television as an ideal way to promote the Games and the fledgling Third Reich. For the Olympic Games, it could only really broadcast to people nearby in Germany. Nazis were so determined to show off their superiority that they set up these special viewing rooms in Berlin and Potsdam for people to gather and actually see the Olympic Games without physically in the stadium. For the Westinghouse Electric Corporation and later for RCA Radio Corporation of America. Zworykin developed the iconoscope, an early form of a television camera tube that significantly improved the quality of transmitted images. In 1939, David Sarnoff, president of the Radio Corporation, had this to say, quote, "I believe that television, which is the technical name for seeing as well as hearing by radio, will come to pass in due course." David Sarnoff is ready to introduce television to the United States of America and to the world as an industry and art, and not merely as a novelty as so many people have previously thought. He is about to predict why television will have a great impact on our lives. His message is the birth of an industry. David Sarnoff gave explanation about the television cameras in front of the RCA exhibition building at the New York World's Fair. He marks the first coverage by television of a news event. His appearance also represents the introduction to the public of black and white television on a commercial basis. RCA directors had this to say, quote, "I believe that television, which is the technical name for seeing as well as hearing by radio, will come to pass." Sarnoff inaugurated America's first regular electronic broadcasting, and 10 days later, on April 30, 1939, at the official opening ceremonies, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt became the first U.S. president who appeared on television. New York World's Fair.
With solemnity perhaps, but with great happiness, a fact. I hereby dedicate the World's Fair, the New York World's Fair of 1939.
In 1941, the Federal Communications Commission (FCC) played a significant role in the standardization and regulation of television broadcasting. The FCC approved the NTSC, National Television System Committee, standard for black and white television, which defined the technical specifications for broadcast signals. This standardization was crucial for the widespread adoption of television as it ensured compatibility between different television sets and broadcast. At that time, only 3 stations that came into the house through an antenna up on the roof. TV becomes one of the most important status symbols. So people can talk each other about what they saw on TV the other day, and they join in the conversation when other people are speaking about it. So it becomes great social connector. In 1948, within just 7 years, there were over 37 million all over the world. There's an explosion of television manufacturers and owners. They were the people who understood that you could fill this airtime with stuff, and people would watch. Advertisers realized that to sell products, they have an audience. Advertisers give to TV companies, and they place their sponsored material around it. At that time, World War II temporarily halted the progress of television, but the post-war era saw a rapid expansion of the medium. The late 1940s and early 1950s were marked by the establishment of major television networks such as NBC, National Broadcasting Company, CBS Columbia Broadcasting System, ABC American Broadcasting Company, and Dumont Network in the United States. These networks began to produce and broadcast a variety of programs: news, sports, comedies, and dramas, which attracted a growing audience. Also, the introduction of color television. While the concept of color television had been explored as early as the 1920s. In 1942, the United States stopped the production of all civilian broadcasting equipment and shifted all that material to wartime use. At the time, there are only an estimated 5,000 television sets in all the United States. At the end of war, The war created growth of the new technology. In October 1945, the U.S. War Production Board ended its wartime ban on the production of radio and television equipment for consumer. By 1946, there was an estimated 6,000 TV sets in North America. 1 year later, in 1947, that number had gone up to 40,000. 4 years later, in 1951, there were 12 million across the nation.
The first coast-to-coast color broadcast took place on January 1, 1954 with the Tournament of Roses parade by NBC, a subsidiary of RCA. Black and white TVs continued to outsell color TVs for yet another decade after that, all the way up to 1972 when color sets started taking over. In 1956, the first alternative color system was being developed in France by Henri France that would later become SECAM. SECAM is the same principle of NTSC. The idea of separating luminance from chrominance and building that into the same signal was the same as the American counterpart, but SECAM dealt with a phase problem that plagued NTSC. Then in 1959, Dr. Waterbrook, who lived in West Germany, an electrical engineer at Telefunken inventing the power system in Germany, looked at NTSC and the French proto-SECAM version and all their inherent problems and weakness, sort of developed a hybrid of two. He invented PAL color television across Europe. His system name became PAL. July 3, 1967 launched color service with PAL standard television program for 2 hours every weekday morning and afternoon. Europe adopted German system. Color adoption in Britain was slow too, as the number of color licenses didn't reach 1 million subscribers for 5 years until 1972 and didn't outpace monochrome television until 1977. Americans had started buying more color TVs than black and white ones. NTSC delivers a slightly higher resolution on the horizontal and higher frame rate than PAL or SECAM.
During the 1960s, television became a dominant form of entertainment and a powerful cultural force. This era saw the rise of iconic television shows and the expansion of television networks. The advancements in production techniques are one of the defining characteristics of television. It was the emergence of anthology drama series shows like The Andy Griffith Show, The Twilight Zone, and Bonanza brought high-quality original storytelling to the small screen, often featuring prominent writers, directors, and actors. These shows pushed the boundaries of what television could achieve in terms of narrative complexity and artistic expression. News and current affairs programming also gained prominence. Edward R. Murrow, a pioneering broadcast journalist, set high standards for television journalism with his program. Edward's fearless reporting and incisive interviews brought critical issues to the forefront and demonstrated the power of television as a tool for informing the public of technological advancements. Television sets in households meant that television became a central part of daily life. Family members would gather around the TV to watch their favorite shows, creating a shared cultural experience. The influence of television on popular culture was profound, shaping fashion, language, and social attitudes.
While Farnsworth was busy revolutionizing television, other inventors were hard at work on the next big thing, the flat-screen TV. Late 20th century, we see the rise of technologies like plasma and LCD, which made those bulky cathode ray tube TVs a thing of the past. Cut to a montage of different TV technologies, from CRT to LCD to OLED. And then came the smart TV, a device that combined the power of a computer with the convenience of a television. Now, you can stream movies, play games, and surf the web all from the comfort of your couch. Who invented the flat-screen TV and the smart TV? Well, it's not a single person, but rather a culmination of decades of research and development by countless scientists and engineers. But let's give credit where credit is due. Philo Taylor Farnsworth, the visionary who laid the groundwork for the television revolution. Farnsworth's story is a reminder that even the greatest ideas can be overshadowed by corporate interests. But his legacy lives on, inspiring future generations of inventors and dreamers. But the innovation didn't stop there. The next big leap was the smart TV. These internet-connected devices transformed our living rooms into entertainment hubs. We can now stream movies, play games, and browse the web, all from the comfort of our couches. While specific inventors are hard to pinpoint, Companies like Samsung and LG were at the forefront of bringing smart TV technology to the masses. In 1960s, believe it or not, the first flat-panel TV prototype wasn't created by a big-name company like Sony or Samsung. It was invented by two visionaries, Donald Bitzer and Gene Slaughter, along with Robert Wilson at the University of Illinois. Donald L. Bitzer is an American electrical engineer and computer scientist. Hiram Gene Slaughter was a professor of electrical engineering at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and Robert Wilson is an American experimental theater stage director who has been described by the New York Times as America's or even the world's most vanguard theater artist. In 1964, they developed the plasma display panel, initially designed for educational use. Imagine creating something that's the ancestor of every flat TV in the world, and then using it to display lecture notes. Wild, right?
The 1990s, when companies like Fujitsu and Panasonic took the concept of plasma displays and made them commercially viable. By the early 2000s, LCD and LED technologies entered the scene, ushering in the ultra-thin, high-definition displays we love today. Plasma may have walked so LCD could run. Late 2000s, the era when our TVs stopped just showing content and started thinking for themselves. Enter the smart TV. In 2007, HP introduced the first smart TV concept, integrating internet connectivity directly into the television. But it was Samsung in 2008 that truly revolutionized the game with their first smart TV. Equipped with apps, streaming capabilities, and even voice control, Samsung brought the future into our living rooms. It was like your TV suddenly got Wi-Fi and became your tech-savvy best friend. The invention of flat-screen TVs made it possible for us to have home theaters. And smart TVs. They turned entertainment into an experience. No more clunky cable boxes or endless wires, just seamless access to streaming platforms, video games, and even fitness. Honestly, my smart TV knows me better than I know myself. Yes, smart TV. Always yes. Today, these technologies have blended so much that it's hard to imagine life without them. Yet, it all started with brilliant minds daring to innovate. From the plasma pioneers to the smart TV trailblazers, we owe them a standing ovation. Or at least a high-quality 4K binge session. Flat screens and smart TVs were just the beginning. We're already seeing the rise of OLEDs, rollable TVs, and even holographic displays. The next time you're watching your favorite show or playing a video game, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey of innovation that got us here. What does the future hold for television? The possibilities are endless. We might see foldable screens, 8K resolution, and even augmented reality experiences integrated into our TVs. The journey from a simple electronic image to the sophisticated devices we have today is a testament to human ingenuity. As we continue to push the boundaries of technology, one thing's for sure, television will remain a vital part of our lives.
The world of tomorrow
So, the next time you're binge-watching your favorite show, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey that brought us to this point. And remember, the future of television is as bright as the screen itself. Take a moment to appreciate the brilliance of Philo Taylor Farnsworth, the man who brought electric television to the world and his family too. Television has positive and negative impact on our lives. On the positive side, TV provides a valuable source of information, allowing us to stay updated on current events, learn about different cultures, and enjoy educational content that can enrich our knowledge. Offers a variety of entertainment options, helping people relax after a long day. On the negative impact of TV can be significant as well. Excessive viewing can contribute to lead to health issues like obesity. The constant exposure to advertisements can influence consumer behavior, leading to unnecessary spending or materialistic values. If you enjoyed this deep dive into TV history, smash that like button, subscribe for more fascinating stories, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Do you have a favorite TV brand? Positive or negative impact of television story? Drop it in the comments, we'd love to hear from you.